Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into another exclusive Bracketology update 8.0. These are daily updates. We got big stuff happening, a lot of first round tournament action yesterday. Some teams with some very bad losses. It's going to be very hard for some of these teams to make the tournament. This is a very weak bubble, but still, we're going to go through all the games that happened yesterday, the big ones in terms of impacting the bubble, impacting seed lines, and then we're going to take a look at the current bubble, the current state of it, all the analytics, things like that. So taking a look at this, these games, you've got Iowa State right now. Looks like they're ranging around a 3 seed. They easily beat Cincinnati. Cincinnati, if they would have went on a crazy run in the Big 12 tournament, you could say maybe they would have an outside shot. But yeah, they're pretty much done at this point, sitting at 18-15 in the Big 12. You've got a first round game, kind of irrelevant. Davidson beating Richmond. You've got Georgia Tech. They would have to win the ACC to get in. They beat Virginia. How about the fall of Virginia basketball? They finished 15-17, 8-12 in the ACC. You've got Charlotte beating Rice. Both of those teams, first round game, not very good. Really bad teams, actually, there. You've got Arkansas beating South Carolina by 4. Big win for Arkansas, we know. Very important. They get to 20 wins. Now they're 8. Well, that's their regular season record in the SEC. South Carolina, they're a lot better than their record says. You're in a tough conference. It is what it is, but that's a big win for Arkansas, no doubt about it. Grambling beats Southern. San Jose State beats Wyoming. That's a first-round Mountain West game. Fordham beats Rhode Island. So that's an upset there. That's a pretty crazy upset when you look at that. North Carolina, big win over Notre Dame. They win by 20. North Carolina, they're on the bubble. They were first 4 out. People saying now they're last 4 in. It's a good 20-point win. Notre Dame, not a very good basketball team this year. They probably need another win to be in safely, and then they need to go on a run here in the ACC, at least make the conference championship game to avoid the first 4. You've got Colorado beating West Virginia. Big loss by West Virginia. I would still assume West Virginia is going to be in, but yeah, Colorado, not good this year. 3-17 regular season, Big 12 record. 14-19, they beat West Virginia in an upset. You've got Northwestern over Minnesota. Both of those teams very likely not going to make it. You've got Texas, another bubble team, 18-14, just 6-12 in the SEC. But that's a solid win over Vanderbilt. So it's a nice 7-point win for them. That'll certainly help their bubble situation and their resume. You've got Butler over Providence, pretty much a relevant game there. Nevada over Fresno State. Fresno State, my goodness. They finished 6-26 on the year, 2-18 in Mountain West play. LaSalle beats Massachusetts, kind of a relevant game. McNeese, congratulations are in order to them. They end up beating Lamar. And so, not surprisingly, they were 19-1 in conference play. They will be in the dance. And we'll have to see where their seed line is. People saying around a 12 seed. We will see. You've got Norfolk State winning the quarterfinal. They are expected to win their conference. They would be a 16 seed if they end up winning it. That's just the quarterfinal game, though. They barely beat Maryland Eastern Shore, who is terrible, by the way, by 7. It's not a good early tournament result there for them. You've got Quinnipiac. They're expected to win their league as well. That's a quarterfinal game. They beat Rider by 14 points. Ohio State loses to Iowa. I would say Ohio State's pretty much done. I mean, you could say, well, if Notre Dame loses their next game, if Texas loses their next game, some other things happen, it's going to be hard. I mean, analytically, like the resume, you can still understand Ohio State barely making the tournament, but just based off of the context of what we've seen, basically Ohio State was kind of fringe in what going into that game against Indiana. They lose to Indiana. All right, well, now you need to at least win one game in the Big Ten tournament. They don't do it. They were 6.5-point favorites. They lose this game to Iowa, who at this point has the same record as Ohio State, worst Big Ten record. Ohio State did have a tough non-conference schedule as well, so that's part of the net rating being a bit higher, but it's going to be hard for them to make the tournament. I mean, analytically, they could still make it, though. You've got Liberty. They're expected to win their league. They destroy UTEP. You've got DePaul beating Georgetown, a very bad first-round matchup there. Mississippi State crushes LSU, so LSU's year is done. Mississippi State, fringe top 25 team, 91 points for them. American, congratulations are in order. The Patriot League, American, wow. They won 74-0. I'm kidding. Imagine they scored 0 points. That's obviously glitched. But yeah, it looks like they blew out Navy. So good win for American. They'll be in the tournament maybe as a 15 seed or a 16 seed. You have UNLV beats Air Force. Air Force finishes 4-28 on the year. Brouch. You've got Baylor. Baylor's on the bubble. They got a big win. I think Baylor's going to be in. They just have they've had a very tough schedule, especially a road schedule. They beat Kansas State. Kansas State, not a good team, but still, I mean, this late in the year, that's an important win to make sure you don't get upset. Stanford beats California. Stanford at 20-12. It's not going to happen because the ACC is so bad. Jackson State beats Florida A&M. South Carolina State beats Coppin State. You've got Merrimack beating Sacred Heart. Double overtime win for USC over Rutgers. Both of these teams not going to make the tournament unless USC, I guess at this point, wins out or at least makes the Big Ten championship game, which not going to happen. Jacksonville State beats Florida International. Utah Valley expected to win their conference. They started off their quarterfinal game. They beat Utah Tech. Always seems like a fake school, Utah Tech. Seems like if you're making like a Netflix series, you title a team Utah Tech. They were like Dixie State and then they rebranded. That's a dumb rebrand. You've got UC Santa Barbara beating Cal State Bakersfield. So a nice year for UC Santa Barbara. They pick up their 20th win. Villanova at 19-13, clinging to the bubble maybe. They've got a good analytical offense, but they're a very slow-moving team. Seton Hall is horrible. So, yeah. You've got Oklahoma over Georgia. So Georgia already is in the tournament. They're possibly a 10 seed. Oklahoma, that's a big win for them on the bubble. Big win. For any bubble team, it would have been better if Georgia would have won because Georgia's already going to make it no matter what. But Oklahoma winning, that just adds a win to their resume. Kansas beats UCF. Not a great performance there. Game went to overtime, but Kansas does get the job done. They're at 21 wins now. SMU beats Syracuse. So SMU at 23-9 in the ACC. You've got Montana beating Northern Colorado. That is the final. So Montana, once again, congratulations are in order to them. They win the Big Sky, and they'll be slotted as like a 15 seed, we would imagine. You've got Grand Canyon winning a quarterfinal game. Yeah, Grand Canyon got a lot of hype this year, at least going into the year. They're still 24-7, 13-3 in conference. They destroy UT Arlington by 23 points. And then you've got Cal Poly beating UC Davis in a meaningless game right there. Last four byes, taking a look at this. I guess it doesn't even matter, but taking a look at the last four byes, Vanderbilt. So even after Vanderbilt's loss, they're still in last four byes. West Virginia, even with their loss, they're still in. Utah State. Oklahoma picks up a win. They move up from a play-in game to the last four byes. The last four in San Diego State, Indiana, Xavier, and North Carolina. So North Carolina, the win, the Ohio State loss. Now Ohio State jumps to the first four out. The second team in the first four out, Ohio State's going to need Texas, North Carolina to lose immediately. Maybe they could jump back, but I don't even know if it's going to be enough, honestly. You've got Boise State, you've got Colorado State, Dayton, Wake Forest, UC Irvine, and Villanova. So at this point, we'll take a look at the overall analytical rankings when it comes to all of these teams in terms of the net. So right now you do have Baylor. I would say Baylor is pretty much entrenched into the tournament. I mean, based off of analytics, they are. VCU as an 11 seed, very good overall quality in terms of the rankings with the BPI, Ken Palm, T-Rank as well. And then you've got UC San Diego. We'll see. I mean, they could maybe steal a bid from, a team that's a 12 seed right now. They're sitting on the line. I mean, obviously, if they win their conference tournament, it's not going to matter. UC Irvine's not going to make it. But UC San Diego, if they lose to UC Irvine in their conference championship, you could be looking at something there to where they steal someone's bid just because of how bad the bubble is this year. North Carolina in this is in the first four out. So North Carolina is sitting at 36 in the net. Yeah, so I think that the feud right now is really going to be Xavier, Ohio State, and North Carolina. They have Ohio State as a 12 seed. They have Xavier as a 12 seed. Xavier at 45 in the net, Ohio State at 40, North Carolina at 36. Analytically, also looking at this, it does look like North Carolina, their resume is superior to Ohio State and Xavier. North Carolina also has played, 10 quad one away games. Ohio State's played 11. I think at this point, North Carolina is probably going to be in over Ohio State, even if they lose this next game, unless they get blown out. I mean, it's just analytically they're overall better. They've got a better record, which isn't surprising because the ACC is way weaker than the Big Ten. But it's not like the Big Ten is this crazy gauntlet either. Utah State is going to be in. They're at 37 in the net. They've just got too good of a record. Arkansas is going to be in. They've got them at a 10 seed right now. You can see Ohio State. The resume is just really lagging. So it looks like both Ohio State and Texas's resume, at least compared to some of these other teams, it's just not there. I mean, it's going to come down to North Carolina, who has a better resume than both Ohio State and Texas. You're going to look at a team like Xavier, who kind of has a similar resume to Ohio State and Texas. The looks like maybe a little bit better even for Xavier. Then you've got Boise State. I think Boise State it's going to be hard for Boise State to make the tournament out of the Mountain West. Their resume is just not there. It's not even close. Vanderbilt should be in. San Diego State is another fringe team. They've just got a very strong resume, though, San Diego State does. That's really on par with like a Utah State and better than North Carolina. West Virginia, even after their loss, it was a bad loss. They're still going to make it as a 9 or a 10 seed. Indiana, the net does not like Indiana at all, but their resume is very solid. The quality is not great with Indiana, but they beat Ohio State at the way end of the year. They're probably going to get the question for Indiana: can they win a game in the Big Ten tournament and avoid that first 4 matchup? That'll be a question for them. Northwestern, really. Villanova's just, their resume is so bad. Drake sitting as an 11. They won, they already have an auto bid, but yeah, they might be an 11 or a 10. I've seen people see them as a 10. UC Irvine. So the problem with these mid-major teams is just the resume is so bad. Like, they've played one single quad 1 away game, and they did beat UC San Diego. That's a very solid win for UC Irvine, but no, the only way this conference gets 2 teams in, it would be UC Irvine beating UC San Diego, probably in like overtime or a very close win. USC has no chance. I think Wake Forest has no chance. I mean, when you start looking at some of these, like that, when it gets to the red, there's no way you're going to make it. I mean, this comes down to really preference, splitting hairs, but you could argue like a VCU. I think VCU is going to make it at this point because of their quality. I mean, they've played 0 quad 1 away games. That cannot be good in terms of their overall strength of schedule. But I mean, if it is what it is. Some of these teams are in easier conferences. Like look at Utah State, 1 single game. But like, this comes down to, you're looking at a Texas, you're looking at an Ohio State, you're looking at a Xavier. You could throw in Boise State. Who does Boise State face in the because I think Boise State's going to have to do some things here. We'll see. San Diego State, yeah, so that's a huge game. They're sitting as like 1-point favorites, basically a toss-up. If they win that game, you can make an argument for Boise State. Like, where's Boise State right now? Boise State first 4 out. They'd probably leapfrog Ohio State. We'll have to see, because Texas is they're still in their conference tournament, but they're in the SEC, so they're probably going to lose their next game. So yeah, this is a huge, huge game for both San Diego State and for Boise State, because San Diego State is also on the bubble. They are, what are they, an 11 or a 10? Let's just go to the bubble. That's kind of what you have to. San Diego State is at 11, but they're at 49 in terms of the net. If San Diego State loses, they're probably still going to be in. If they win, they probably leapfrog Oklahoma and become have a bye. But I mean, you're looking at like, at this point, Arkansas pretty much locked in. You're looking at Utah State with their record locked in. North Carolina. I mean, if North Carolina loses this next game, I just want to see who they face next. Wake Forest. Yeah, if they lose to Wake Forest, they're probably out. I mean, depends. It's very close. But I mean, it's not like Wake Forest is this great team, let's be honest. I actually want to look at this overall, just the overall metrics here. Like, look at Auburn. Yeah, Auburn's resume and quality are just crazy. Duke's number 1 in everything in terms of quality. Houston, Florida. I mean, these are the 1 seeds, right? These are the 1 seeds right now. We'll see what happens in the SEC Championship. Tennessee, Bama, they're going to be on the 2 line unless they go crazy in the SEC Championship and Bama beats Florida. This is interesting. They've got, you can see Texas Tech is the number 7 overall seed. This is kind of cool to look at in terms of like analytically the best teams. Look at the KPI. Has Texas Tech at 19, Gonzaga at 27. Gonzaga is a team that a lot of people are going to be picking because of these analytics. Like, they're the number 8 overall team in the analytics. But I mean, quad one road games, they're 1-3. So this is not a team that's particularly won a lot of big games. But I mean, analytically, they're blowing out a ton of teams, so that's why they're going to look really good in terms of that. Iowa State's another team, too. You know what? Quad one away games, I feel like, are an underrated metric in terms of some of these teams winning in the tournament, because those are just very hard games. They're hard games. You're going to have to win hard games in the tournament. Iowa State's 2-4. Michigan State's 6-2. Maryland's 2-4. Kentucky's 7-6. So yeah, we'll see. I mean, you could, like, St. John's is number 16, but they're a 2 seed. Yeah, it's because of their offensive efficiency. That's why they're way down there. Texas A&M. I think Texas A&M is like a fraudulent team as well. They're a 3 seed, but they're at number 17. Wisconsin, I think, is a fraudulent team. They're at 19, but they're a 4 seed. Clemson, I think you could argue, is a fraudulent team because of the ACC and that record. They kind of beat up on a lot of those teams. But yeah, like where the discrepancies would really be like with a UC San Diego, because their quality is going to be terrible. That would be the first one. Baylor also, kind of a discrepancy there. Ohio State and Texas, you're splitting hairs. You really are. And they've got Memphis as an 8. That's because Memphis is a really good record. The net is kind of weird in terms of how they calculate this stuff. I mean, they do value strength of schedule. There's no doubt about it. But either way, guys, that's an update for the bracketology. That's going to do it for this video. Make sure you follow me on X. Link to that's always in the description.